There is a woman I will call Margaret. She is 71 years old. She lives alone in a house in Ohio. A house that was once full. Children running through hallways, voices at the kitchen table, Saturday mornings that smelled like coffee and maple syrup. Now it is quiet. Every Sunday, Margaret sits in the chair by the living room window. Not because the view is beautiful. She sits there because that is the chair that faces the driveway. That is the chair she sat in years ago when her son used to pull in every Sunday afternoon around 2 o'clock. He stopped coming. The reasons are complicated, the way family reasons always are. There were words said, there were words not said. There is a distance now that no one officially declared, but everyone can feel. And so Margaret sits and waits, and the afternoon light moves across the floor, and the driveway stays empty. If you're watching this, perhaps you know that chair. Perhaps you have your own version of it. A phone you check too often. A holiday that arrives and passes without a message. A grandchild whose photographs you see only on a screen, posted by someone who no longer speaks to you. This particular pain, the silence of a parent waiting for a child who does not come, is one of the quietest forms of suffering in a human life. It is not dramatic, no one can see it, but it is real, and it is heavy. Today I want to offer you something, not false hope, not a trick to make your child call you. What I want to offer is more lasting than that, a path out of the suffering of waiting itself. The Buddha did not teach us to love less. He taught us to suffer less in how we love. There are 3 things you can begin today. Not to forget your child, not to stop loving them, but to stop allowing the waiting to consume the life you still have left to live. In the Salata Sutta, a teaching found in the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha speaks of 2 arrows. Salata, arrow. When something painful happens, he says, it is as if we are struck by an arrow. That first arrow is the pain itself, the reality of it. Your child has grown distant. That is the first arrow. It is real. It hurts. We do not pretend otherwise. But then, almost immediately, most of us reach for a second arrow and drive it into the same wound ourselves. We replay conversations. We rehearse what we should have said. We build stories about what it means, about who is to blame, about whether our child will ever return. We sit by the window every Sunday, not just feeling the loss, but feeding it, watering it, keeping it alive with our attention. The Buddha calls the root of this second arrow upadana, clinging, grasping. Upadana means the mind that grips what it cannot hold. We cannot hold our adult children. We never could. But the mind that does not know this reaches and reaches and reaches. The 3 things I am about to share with you are not about withdrawing your love. They are about withdrawing your grip, releasing the posture of waiting. Not the love, the posture. Can you feel the difference? The first thing is this: release the story, not the love. Let me tell you about Harold. Harold is 74. He retired from the postal service. He has 3 grandchildren he has never met in person. They live in Portland. And his daughter moved there after what Harold still calls, in his mind, the incident. The incident was Thanksgiving 2019. There was a disagreement. Voices were raised. His daughter left before dessert and did not come back. Harold has replayed that Thanksgiving dinner, he estimates, several thousand times. He has rerun the exact sequence of words. He has imagined different versions where he said something different, versions where she responded differently, versions where the whole thing simply did not happen. Sometimes, lying in bed at 3 in the morning, he conducts entire arguments with her in his imagination. Arguments in which he finally says the perfect thing and she understands and she comes home. She has not come home. The teaching I want to offer Harold, and perhaps to you, comes from a text called the Vitakka Santana Sutta. In this teaching, the Buddha describes a particular affliction of mind he calls papancha, Papancha, proliferation, the story making mind. Papancha is the mind that takes a single moment, one argument, one silence, one unanswered phone call, and turns it into a monument, into a landscape, into an entire inner world that we then live inside of, sometimes for years. Harold is not simply missing his daughter. Harold is living inside the story of the Thanksgiving of 2019 as if it is still happening. The story has grown larger than the event. The story has become his interior life. Here is what the Buddha observed. We are not our stories. The story arose. The story can also pass. But it will not pass on its own while we are feeding it every day. So the first practice I want to offer you is very simple, deceptively simple. When the story arises, when the mental replay begins, when the imaginary argument starts, do not try to stop it by force. Simply notice it. And in the moment of noticing, say to yourself quietly, thinking. Just that one word, thinking. And return to your breath. The thought will arise again. It always does. Say again, thinking. Return to breath. You are not punishing the memory. You are not denying the love. You are simply refusing to be swept away by the current of the story. You are learning to stand on the bank and watch the river move without throwing yourself in. There is a second practice that some people find helpful, and it may surprise you. Write the letter you will never send. Get a piece of paper, real paper, not a screen, and write to your child. Write everything, the hurt, the confusion, the love, the things you wish you had done differently, the things you wish they had done differently. Write it all down, without editing, without softening. And when you are finished, do not send it. Fold it, hold it, and then, when you are ready, set it down. Put it away. Burn it if you like. The point is not the letter. The point is the externalizing of what has been living inside you unspoken for months or years. When we carry grief inside without giving it any form, it grows. When we give it form, even privately, it often loosens. I want to be precise about something because I do not want to be misunderstood. Releasing the story does not mean releasing the love. It does not mean pretending the relationship does not matter. It does not mean deciding your child was right to pull away. It means this: the story is not the relationship. The relationship is something deeper. It exists in the heart, beyond narrative. You can love your child fully and still refuse to live inside the story of what went wrong. Your child lives in your heart. The story lives in your head. You can release one without releasing the other. You can hold your child in your heart without holding the wound in your mind. The second thing is this: fill the silence with purpose. Let me tell you about Dorothy. Dorothy is 68 years old. She taught third grade for 31 years in a school in Minnesota. She retired 4 years ago, a little earlier than planned, because her knees had stopped cooperating with 31 years of standing. Her daughter Emma moved to Seattle 5 years ago for a job and a life that Dorothy does not fully understand. They speak on the phone occasionally. It is polite. It is surface. Dorothy feels, as she says to her friend Ruth, like she is talking to a stranger who happens to know her childhood. After Dorothy retired, the house became very quiet. The mornings were long. She found herself looking at her phone with a frequency that embarrassed her. She found herself eating meals at the coffee table with the television on, not because she was watching it, but because she needed the sound of voices. She knew this was not living, but she did not quite know what to do instead. A neighbor mentioned that the public library 2 miles away was looking for volunteers to read to children on Tuesday mornings. Dorothy almost said no. She almost said, I am retired, I am tired, I already gave 31 years to other people's children. But she said yes. And something began to shift. Not immediately. The first Tuesday was awkward, the second was easier. By the fourth week, a small girl named Rosie had begun saving Dorothy a seat. Dorothy told her friend Ruth, I do not think about Emma on Tuesday mornings. The Pali word I want to offer you here is kusala kamma. Kusala, wholesome, skillful, tending toward good. Kamma, intentional action. Kusala kamma is not simply being busy. This is important. I am not telling you to fill your life with activities so that you do not have to feel anything. That is not the teaching. Kusala kamma is directed goodness. It is action chosen with intention, action that waters the seeds of your better nature rather than the seeds of your suffering, action that connects you to the living world rather than to the interior world of waiting. The Chula Kamma Vibhanga Sutta teaches that we are, in a profound sense, heirs to our own actions. What we do shapes what we become, not just in some distant future, right now, in this body, in this life, in this season. The woman who spends her Tuesday mornings in the library reading to Rosie is, slowly and genuinely, becoming a different kind of person than the woman who sits at the coffee table with the television as background noise. Both women love their daughters, but only one of them is living. The practical question is, what is your Tuesday morning? It does not have to be volunteer work. It might also be a garden that you tend with real attention, a skill you are learning for the first time, a walking group, a meditation community, a neighbor who is older than you and who would benefit from company. The criteria are simple. It must involve your full presence. It must connect you to something or someone outside your own mind. And it must be chosen, not simply fallen into, but consciously chosen as the direction of your energy. I want to offer you what I call the two hands teaching. One hand releases what you cannot control. The other reaches toward what you can give. You cannot control whether your child calls. You cannot control whether they return. That belongs to them, their path, their timing, their heart. The hand that reaches for that must eventually open and let go. But the other hand, the reaching hand, that hand can always find something to touch, something to tend, something to contribute. That hand is always available to you, regardless of what the other hand must release. When both hands understand their proper role, something in the body relaxes. The tension of grasping dissolves. What remains is available energy, living energy. There is one more thing I want to say about this second teaching, and I say it with gentleness. Adult children who have grown distant often come back, not when their parents increase the pressure, not when the waiting becomes more visible or more communicated, but when they sense that their parent has built a life, a real life, not a vigil. A parent who is waiting is a wait. A parent who is living is a light. You cannot manufacture this strategically. Children are perceptive, and they will know the difference. But when the life you are living is genuine, when Dorothy's Tuesday mornings with Rosie are real and not performed, something in the field between parent and child changes. Slowly, quietly, sometimes surprisingly. The silence in your home is not emptiness. It is space. How you fill it is your practice. The third thing is the deepest, and it is this. Become the peace your children can sense. Let me tell you about Eleanor. Eleanor is 77. Her son Robert, she named him after her father, has not called in 8 months. Eleanor does not know exactly why. There were tensions with Robert's wife. There were the grandchildren's birthdays that came and went. There was one phone call that ended badly and was never repaired. 8 months of silence. Eleanor is not a woman who has ever sat still easily. She describes herself as a warrior by nature. She has spent much of her life managing the household, managing relationships, managing the emotional temperature of every room she enters. She is good at it. She is exhausting to herself because of it. A few months ago, a friend gave her a small book about metta practice, loving kindness meditation. Eleanor says, I thought it sounded soft, I thought, what good is wishing someone well when they won't even answer the phone? But she tried it. Every morning, 10 minutes. First for herself, which she found surprisingly difficult, then for Robert, then extending outward. 6 weeks later, Robert texted her. Nothing dramatic. A photograph of the grandchildren at a baseball game. 3 words. Thought of you. Eleanor does not claim her meta practice caused Robert to text. She is too clear-eyed for that. But she says something changed in herself, and she suspects he felt it. The Pali word metta is often translated as loving kindness, but this translation, while useful, can be misleading. It can sound like a feeling, warm and sentimental and passive. Metta is not primarily a feeling. It is a trained mental quality. It is the deliberate cultivation of goodwill toward oneself, toward others, toward those we love, and crucially, toward those with whom we are in difficulty. When Eleanor sends metta toward Robert, she is not performing a sentimental exercise. She is doing something disciplined. She is training her mind to hold Robert in goodwill without the addition of need, without the addition of demand, without the weight of expectation. This is harder than it sounds. Most of what we call love, when it is directed towards someone who has hurt us or left us, is mixed. It is love mixed with longing, love mixed with resentment, love mixed with the unspoken demand. Come back, acknowledge me, make this right. We send all of this toward our children, across distance, through phone calls, even through silence, and they feel the weight of it. They may not be able to name it. They may not even be consciously aware of it, but they feel it. Distance is sometimes a child's way of protecting themselves from a weight they do not know how to carry. The companion quality to metta is upekkha, equanimity. Upekkha is often described as balance, composure, but the word carries something more specific. It is the quality of a mind that is fully present and fully caring without being destabilized by outcome. The parent with upekkha is not indifferent. They are not cold. They have not stopped loving their child, but they have stopped making their child responsible for their peace. This is perhaps the most radical thing I will say in this entire teaching. As long as your child is responsible for your peace, as long as your inner state depends on whether they call, whether they return, whether they say the right words, you are placing something on your child that no child should have to carry, and they sense it, even across silence, even across hundreds of miles. The parent who has found ground, who has done the inner work, who sits in genuine equanimity, does not communicate need through every interaction. They communicate steadiness. And steadiness, unlike need, tends to draw people closer. Let me offer you a formal metta practice for an estranged child. You may do this sitting quietly, eyes closed if you are comfortable. Bring your child's image gently to mind, not the conflict, not the silence, the face, perhaps a younger face, your child at a moment you loved easily. And in your heart, repeat these phrases slowly, without rushing. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you live with ease. You do not need to feel the phrases immediately. Some days the words will feel hollow. That is all right. The practice is in the repetition, in the returning, in the choosing to wish them well even when the heart is also carrying hurt. Do this for 5 minutes each morning, not to manipulate an outcome, not as a strategy, but because you are training your own mind. And a mind trained in goodwill becomes, over time, a different kind of mind, a lighter mind, a steadier mind. There is one more practical guidance I want to offer. It concerns the moments when you do reach out, a text, a card, a brief call. Before you reach out, pause and ask yourself honestly, without self-judgment, am I reaching out to connect or am I reaching out to relieve my own anxiety? This is not a trick question. Both impulses are human, but they produce very different communications. A message sent from anxiety, even a short one, even a kind one, carries the vibration of need. A message sent from genuine connection and goodwill carries something different entirely. The Metta Sutta, one of the most beloved texts in all of Theravada Buddhism, speaks of radiating loving kindness in all directions, as a mother watches over her child. Radiating, not targeting, not demanding, radiating, the way a lamp radiates light without choosing who enters the room. You cannot force your child back through the door, but you can become someone whose doorway radiates peace. And peace, unlike pressure, tends not to push people away. And now, if you are willing, let us sit together for a moment. Close your eyes if that is comfortable for you. Let your hands rest open in your lap. Take one slow breath in through the nose and release it long and gentle through the mouth. Bring to mind your child. Not the silence, not the last difficult conversation, not the empty driveway. Just the face. Whatever face arises, let it arise. Breathe with that image. Don't try to fix it or change it. Just breathe with it. Now, from somewhere quiet inside you, send one wordless wish toward that face. Not a demand, not a prayer for them to return. Simply a wish. Simply, may you be well. Feel what happens in your own chest when you do that. There is something there, underneath the grief, underneath the story. Something that has never stopped wishing them well. That is the love that does not need a response to exist. That is yours. It has always been yours. Gently, when you are ready, let the image go. Return to the room. Return to your breath. Let us return to where we began. Margaret sits by the window on Sunday afternoons, watching the driveway. Here is what I hope for Margaret, and for you. Not that the driveway fills, not that the phone rings at the perfect moment, but that one Sunday afternoon, Margaret looks away from the driveway. She looks instead at the light in the room, at the cup of tea in her hands, still warm, at the life that is here, present, alive, waiting not for her son, but for her. The three things I have offered you today are one movement in three parts. Release the story, not the love. The story lives in the mind and feeds on attention. The love lives in the heart and needs no story to survive. Fill the silence with purpose, with kusala kamma, with directed goodness that connects you to the living world and grows the seeds of your better nature. And become the peace your children can sense through metta, through upekha, through the radical work of no longer placing your inner peace in someone else's hands. You are not stopping love. You are stopping the suffering posture of waiting. And in doing so, you are making yourself available to this life, to this moment, to whatever grace may still be moving in the spaces between you and your child. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you live with ease. May all beings everywhere, all parents carrying silent grief, all children who carry distances they do not fully understand, may they be free from suffering. May they find their way to peace. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.